Welcome, everybody. A little bit late here in Australia, but everyone is waking up in Europe. And tonight, or today, if you are in Europe, I really wanted to catch up with our good friend Kass, who is on the ground after having watched the start of the TJV. Oh my goodness, how exciting. Kass, where are you? You look absolutely gorgeous, and it's beautiful and sunny over there.
Yes, it's a beautiful day. I am in the delightful town of Honfleur, which is a traditional Norman village just across the river, just across the Seine from Le Havre. So it's quite quaint, and I'm standing in the old harbour. You might hear the church bells occasionally going off.
That was absolutely beautiful timing. I'm so jealous. It looks absolutely glorious. But what I'm most jealous of is that you got to see the start yesterday in person. Should we just get straight into the recap thanks to the actual race team? Let's do it.
The boats were moored in the dock for 10 days. 10 days waiting for the open sea, waiting for this. A moment for goodbyes. In the car, I was in my own bubble. The bubble's burst now, and I'm going to have to refocus. A complex mix of emotions. We're on fire, we're in the flow of the Jacques Vabre. We've worked for months, for years to be here, to live these moments. It's an important emotional moment. 79 double-handed boats on the same line, a record in the history of the Transat Jacques Vabre. 4 classes, 4 boat sizes, 4 very different speeds. At the start, there are many people, not only competitors. That's where you have the most risk of collision, in the hours before and after the start. In other words, better get ahead. Franck Camas and Charles Caudrelier were the first to the Etretat mark. At the same point, Leclerc and Escoffier politely kept their distance from Gabard and Lepage. And behind the all teams, the Ocean 50s, multi-hulls, half the size, put on a show. And then the Imocas. I think it's going to take longer than we thought it would. There'll be no change out of 18 days now. So, between 2 and 3 weeks of racing coming up. Impossible to say who'll arrive first in Martinique, the new finish line of the Transat Jacques Vabre.
Too cool. So Kass, talk to me. 79 boats, all double-handed, ranging from the Class 40s all the way through to the old teams. It's absolutely amazing, and what a view.
Yeah, it was a wonderful spectacle and really exciting. We had a great vantage point from the cliffs, just looking straight down the start line. It was good to see everybody get away cleanly, which, you know, with 79 boats is not always a guarantee. And then we had jumped in the car and tried to race up to the turning mark, which is about 30 kilometers up the coast. Yeah, we were just about keeping up with the old teams. It was a bit, you know, touch and go, but we ran afoul with parking situation.
Oh no!
It's a small village, about 500 parking spaces. It was chocker because, you know, it's a known, you know, it's a stunning, just the place where they had the mark. It's quite close into the beach, and then there's these, as you saw, the stunning cliffs and arches. So they were just full of people.
Oh, so cool.
watching this mark rounding. Even I think more exciting than the start, really. So.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm sad you didn't quite get there, but beautiful views there. So thanks to the Transat Jacques Vabre for giving us access to all of the vision.
We did see the Class 40s. We had a good
cool
view of the Class 40s going around. That was quite exciting.
Oh, well, speaking of the Class 40s, you should run me through what's happening with that fleet. And I believe you had a good chat to Brian Thompson and Alistair Richardson, who were the only complete British entry, I think, in this race.
Yes, that's true. So Brian and Alistair met when racing Argo, which is a Mod 70 trimaran. And they've been doing that for several years. They've had quite a bit of success. And Alistair's decided, Alistair, I think, from what I understand, normally does foredeck. I mean, on you do a bit of everything on those boats, but
Yeah.
he kind of got curious about the shorthanded scene and decided to get into it, and happily Brian, agreed to be his co-skipper and sort of guide. Brian, as you know, is a former very successful Vendée Globe skipper. I think he was fourth or fifth. Well, he's definitely in the top 10 in 2008 Vendée Globe. And then he's also quite well known in France for having been the only Brit on board Banque Populaire when they did the what is it called? The trophy,
Yeah.
Trophy Jules Verne, which is a record nonstop round the world, fully crewed, which they did achieve. So, yeah, it was quite funny to watch them leave. I was in a group of people cheering, shouting out the names of each pair that came by, and he didn't seem to have. He seemed to be a bit sort of incognito. I didn't hear a lot of people kind of saying, "Oh, Brian." But he told me before the start that, they're in an old boat. It was sort of the boat that they could get. There's not many in the grand scheme of things. Everybody wants to do Class 40 racing now, so the boats are kind of hard to get your hands on. So they took a boat. They've only had it a little while. I don't think they've done any racing. They did their 1,000-mile qualifier, had a lot of bugs to work out while doing that, but managed to qualify, and now they're off. So they're saying they don't, they would be happy to be mid-fleet, given the sort of age of the boat and their experience on it. But so far they're kind of punching above their weight, and I'm really glad to see them.
Absolutely.
Where they are. I think where did we last see them? They are at.
I'll have a look. I think I can bring
12th.
the screen up for you. 12th, yeah. I can.
Yeah. So Tequila.
Excellent.
Yeah, Tequila's in 12th.
I've organised this one for you so we can actually bring it up. And the Class 40s, Tequila, there they are, just there in 12th. And in first at the moment, La Manche, Evidence Nautique, then Project Rescue Ocean, Credit Mutual, Le Mot Module Creation. And look who's in third, La Boulangerie Bio. Oh, that's so exciting. Yep. I love that one. Tell me what.
So that's one of three, that's one of three pairs where it's both women. And great to see them doing well. Mary Roux is an extremely well-known and experienced, successful sailor. I think she had a NACRA, am I right? NACRA campaign?
She did a NACRA campaign with Billy Besson, and she was the first female to sail as part of the Sail GP series before women were compulsory for each team. So she actually did season 1, so bit of a legend. And I think her sister is now the French member, Amélie Roux. So Rio. So yeah, it's very cool. Good heritage there, but double-handed. When we were talking about this before the race started, Kass, it's like, oh, we'll go and interview the skippers. Exactly. The two skippers, equal standing. So there are some teams with one male and one female. There are some with two females. Majority have two males. But it's still great to see some women actually making their way in.
Yep.
Absolutely. Now, Polka Dot's another one you've pulled out. E. Leclerc, they're right near to each other, but I think a few of them had some issues.
So one of the things we got to see as we were watching the mark roundings in Etretat, it was E. Leclerc appeared to have snagged on the mooring line for the mark. So they spent a painful, I would say it was 10-15 minutes just stuck trying to get themselves, unmoored with the sails flapping and everything. It must be so disappointing to start a race like that. But I'm sure, as great athletes as they are, mentally they know that you just have to, sort it out and then forget about it and get on with things and not dwell. So I'm sure that's what they did.
Absolutely. Now, Full of Life.
Okay, and Polka Dot.
Yeah, Polka Dot. We've got Polka Dot, and then we'll talk about Full of Life.
Yeah, well, Polka Dot's interesting in that they're a duo of an American, so I think the only American in the class, and you'll have to tell me his name.
I will find it for you. They're right next to each other. But he's
sailing with Murphin Owen, who's a very well-known, very successful yacht designer. He's designed a lot of Class 40s and
Murphin Owen.
Yeah. So you often hear of an Owen Clark design. So he's the Owen and Owen Clark. And he was one of the designers on Kingfisher, which was Ellen MacArthur's legendary IMOCA, in which she nearly won the Vendée Globe at age 23. So Owen's very experienced. He's done this race before, and it will be great for his co-skipper to have the opportunity to learn from him and hopefully sort of start moving up the class.
And a little way to go, looking like 18 days or 3 weeks at sea for these teams. Now, someone who's very happy that they made it past the start after a not so good start to the Rolex Fastnet race is the Croatian team, Kass.
Yeah. So, how do you say his name?
Ivica, I think.
Ivica.
There's two ways, yeah.
Is new to the class, a fairly recent addition to the class, and he was an Olympic skier. And you'll tell me exactly how successful a skier he was, because you know about skiing.
I believe he's won 5 medals in skiing, and now he's swapped over to sailing, which is pretty impressive. Yep. Was thinking about a mixed double-handed campaign for the Olympics for 2024, but that hasn't happened, so he's continued doing his double-handed racing. And I have a little video with him looking very happy after the start, because tell me about the Fastnet, Kass.
Oh yeah, so they took the start of the Fastnet and were T-boned by another Class 40, and he's very lucky to have kept the rig. Apparently, if it had just been a couple more inches further aft, it would have taken out the shrouds. So they were very, very disappointed to have to retire from the Fastnet after having only just started, and then it became a bit of a race to get the boat repaired in time for this race. So I'm sure it was extremely nerve-wracking times for them, but they made the start, as did the other boat that T-boned them. So we'll see.
Let's have a look.
Maybe a bit of a grudge to settle.
Indeed. Here we go with Croatia full of life just after the start.
Hi everyone, welcome to Croatia full of life, battling upwind towards Barfleur. Currently 11th place, not bad for the beginning. We have about 20 knots breeze, doing quite well, everything fine on board. See you soon.
Very, very happy on board there to be underway, which is great to see. And you're putting your jacket back on. The temperature looks like it's changing all the time.
Yeah, every time the sun goes behind the cloud, I need my jacket, and then it
winter.
Comes out, and I'm too hot.
Oh, yeah. We should move on to the IMOCAs while you're there. I'll bring up the leaderboard for you, Kass, and Apivia are miles in front. Charlie Darlin and Paul Milhat already. You can see they're leading there by 23.6 nautical miles, and then very close back to Coram and Linked Out and the second 11th hour racing team. So they're just doing spectacularly. They did win the division for the IMOCA in the Rolex Fastnet race. Yeah,
so Charlie has always been fast in that boat, as we saw in the Vendée Globe, and it's just been getting faster and faster. So I think I heard that he's kind of cracked the art of foiling upwind, and so it's not really a surprise. I think everyone pretty much expected to see him out in front, but maybe not by such an amount so quickly. And the only kind of there's a bit of a wild card in the form of the 11th hour 2, the new boat.
Yeah, the new boat.
Could be quite expected to be quite fast, but they're still kind of sort of in shakedown mode. Really, they haven't had a lot of time. The boat only went into the water in August, was it?
Yeah, and so but you got to do a little tour.
Quite impressive.
You got to do a little tour.
I did. From the dock, we had Amory Ross, who's the media man, spend quite a lot of time with us, which was quite generous, and we appreciated it. But they're still, so it's the first new IMOCA of this generation, and so I think they're being a bit guarded about what they, there's been a lot of innovation that's gone into the boat, and I think they're trying to, keep it to themselves as long as they can, because that's a bit of an advantage for them.
Yeah.
But what did we see? The most impressive thing in my mind was they have the boom is from Southern Spars, and it's extremely aerodynamic. And for example, instead of having sort of an outhaul with sort of blocks and things at the end of the boom, the whole boom extends and contracts from the gooseneck.
Like a hydraulic boom.
And yeah. So it's a hydraulic boom.
Wow.
And that's primarily to sort of kind of keep it slippery.
Yeah.
Aerodynamically. And then the reef points, the reefing system is quite interesting. It's all inside the boom, and it's in the form of halyard locks.
Oh, wow.
The same sort of mechanism used for halyard locks, but they sit inside the boom, and so it makes it quite fast and easy to precisely get the reefs in.
Yeah. Now, someone who hasn't had
exciting.
Yeah, someone who hasn't had the best start to the race, and it's not exciting, and they haven't passed away. For those who saw on Facebook, the translation from French to English was a little bit blunt. Their mast came down, so I think their rig passed over the boat, and the translation was that they'd passed away. Poor Burton.
Yeah, Louis Burton.
Oh.
Yeah, must be absolutely gutting.
Yeah.
It's,
really
put
tough.
so much work in, and it's a new boat. So that's the Occitan de Provence of Armel Tripon from the last Vendée. So that was one of the in the musical chairs that happens between skippers and boats after the race. That was one of the first ones to be grabbed by Louis Burton, and as we all know, his old boat is now gone to Pip Hare.
Yeah.
Who sadly has decided to just focus on getting to know the boat, and she didn't want to put too much pressure on herself by rushing to get to this race too quickly, and then perhaps sort of not being entirely ready and having a bad result. It's better to, which I think is really sensible.
Better to be prepared.
So
over your shoulder, Kass.
We yeah.
We could see that it's quite quiet over your shoulder, but everything we've seen of the race so far, it's been windy, 20 knots, even with the Croatian. He's like, it's 20 knots here. So I have a few from the Imoca class, one with Linked Out and then one with Chiral. And it's a very different story, as we can see there behind you now, next to no wind, if even a breath.
Yeah. Yeah, so they went charging around into the what is that called? Sort of around the
I'll bring it up for you.
Normandy Peninsula.
Yep.
Yeah, and then into the bay where the Channel Islands are.
Mm-hmm.
And then around in the early hours of this morning, the wind just shut off. So we had a lot of boats just drifting.
Park it up.
Yeah.
So I'll bring up some
although
videos with them now, so we can have a look at just how light it is. Here's Thomas Rouen on board, Linked Out, showing us the weather for this morning.
Premier matin sur cette Transat Jacques Vabre.
And you can translate for us, Kass, but I'm just going to show you a little bit of a snip. You can see there Chiral in the distance, I believe.
Transat Jacques Vabre qui part au mois de novembre.
It is very quiet.
Le début de parcours,
and here is Chiral.
Et bien le bonjour à bord de Charal sur ce début de Transat Jacques Vabre 2021.
From on board Chiral, I can even do that bit.
De course. Yeah. On est déjà dans le poteau noir. On va l'appeler le pot.
We're already in the doldrums.
C'est pareil. Il y a des gros nuages, il n'y a pas de vent.
Yeah, so they're just off the north coast of Brittany.
On ne sait pas quand c'est qu'on va s'en sortir.
It's cloudy.
La seule différence, c'est que on n'est pas tout seul cette fois-ci.
Yeah, we're not alone.
C'est Thomas et Morgan qui sont juste
not
là.
alone.
Et puis
those foils are not
Thomas
useful.
and Morgan. No.
Ça c'est chouette.
Drag.
Bon allez.
And that's something that we learned during the last Vendée Globe, I think, Kass, was that foiling Imocas, non-foiling Imocas, it sort of all does work out in the wash when you do have situations like this with next to no wind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's
So-
a couple of boats surprised us by being up in the top 10 without
Yeah,
foils.
exactly.
So, and I think given the forecast for this race, we could very easily see the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. So very, very different set of conditions out there. So what we might do is switch over to the Ocean 50s. They are just a little bit further in front of the Amoccas here. You can see them already around the coast there. Leading the way, Primonial, followed by Cosio, Solidaires en Peloton, and then Arkema 4, and then Leighton. Now, Kass, you've had a pretty amazing opportunity to actually sail with Leighton. They're maybe not doing as well as they would have hoped.
No, I mean, it's early days, but Leighton is definitely the strong favorite going into this race, having won the Pro Sailing Tour Series this past season. And they really, they ran away with it. They were first in every event. So, so very surprising to see them where they are at the back of the fleet now. But I'm a bit biased. I'm hoping they'll sort it out. But I did talk to Sam and Emmerich before the race and sort of asked them who they were most worried about, and they essentially said it's there's 3 boats that could definitely win. But then there's a couple of new boats that they don't know about, so you have to kind of be concerned with them as well. So essentially, it could be won by any one of these boats, and so the best thing in that case is just to concentrate on your own boat and what you're doing and sail the best race you can. So
absolutely.
It's going to be a really, I think, one of the tightest finishes probably of all 4 classes, I would imagine.
Speaking of being very close and it going to the death, we're only at the start now, but if we bring up the old teams, the final of the 4 classes in this Transat Jacques Vabre race, we know that the old teams here, the 100-footers, if you just look at the distance between first and fourth here, it's 1.6 nautical miles. That's incredibly close. Banque Populaire took a bit of a lefty when they first came round the turning mark, and they're only 15 nautical miles back. So still very close for those 5 boats.
Yeah, I was quite surprised to see Armel Lecléache kind of split from the fleet so early. He's taken the inside route, down past the Red de Brest, I can only presume he saw an opportunity to get a bit of push from the Res de Seine tidal stream, and was hoping that would kind of shoot him out in front. It hasn't seemed to work, but I'm sure there's plenty of time for him to hopefully claw his way back.
Still a long way to go.
So that was kind of a surprising development so early in the race.
And on board with him is Kevin Escoffier, who many will remember was a very, very lucky man during the last Vendée Globe.
Yes, indeed.
A very, very lucky man.
Hugely experienced. So, yeah, I think it will. That's a great team.
Absolutely. Now, I do have some vision. Oh, you go. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. I was just going to talk about the the thing I was hearing when talking to various skippers was that this is the weather picture for this race is looking quite unusual. That nothing is happening is expected in the Atlantic at the moment. The Azores High is not where you'd think it would be. The doldrums aren't where you think they should be. It's looking like it'd be quite light.
Yeah.
For most of the race, and then the other thing, especially in the case of the all teams, is they're being sent through a bit of the ocean that doesn't see very, traditionally hasn't had very many races going through it, so you don't have the kind of history to look back on. There's sort of not so many lessons you can learn from other teams. That is what you normally have in these races that have a long history. So it will be interesting to see kind of how the teams sort of pick their way through this complicated weather.
Because for those who don't know, Kass, this is the first time they're going to go to Martinique rather than to Brazil, so it's a bit of an unknown for everyone.
Yeah, and so there's 3 different courses, and the all teams, of course, being the fastest boats, have the longest course. They go, down to the coast of Brazil, around an island there, and then back up to Martinique.
Far out.
So
it's going to be massive.
The chats I've had, when asking about who the favorites within the all teams, it come down to, given the conditions, weight might play quite a big part in the relative weights of these boats, and it is quite different. So Sodebo, for example, is thought to be the heaviest of the boats, and looking at the build as I did my dock walk, it was quite striking how much beefier, for example, the rudder housing and the bearings for the rudders. They've all put new T-foil rudders on this past season, so they get better.
So keep an eye out, everyone. Keep an eye out, everyone, in the next few days, because I do have a lot of vision from the dock. So while these boats are off racing, we can get a nice close-up view of them, thanks to Kass and all her work on the ground while she's been over there. And I know that we're definitely going to need to get more updates from you as this race progresses. I feel like yourself and Rupert live these offshore moments, especially the short-handed ones. And so I really, really appreciate having you here to talk with us all. I have a little bit of vision on board with actual, but it's nighttime footage. Did you want to have a little bit of a look at that, or should we call it a day and let you go have breakfast? We have a little look?
No, let's have a quick look, yeah.
Here we go.
Juste à côté de moi, là, c'est l'écran du radar. Et on voit, il y a des traces rouges dessus. C'est l'île de Ouessant qui est toute proche. Et on est en train de passer tranquillement au nord de Ouessant, dans un vent improbable, mais qui nous fait avancer, qui va permettre de nous faire contourner Ouessant finalement pas trop mal.
All right, so he was talking about passing by the Isle of Ushant. Very light conditions, and I think they wanted to go south of it. It looked like the boats, tried to get around that east corner, and then couldn't because of tidal conditions and lack of wind. So the four of them that have gone around that way have ended up sort of crawling along the north coast through the early hours of the morning.
And we actually mean crawling, even though it's a 100-footer and they're usually flying. I think Jatana did an average of 22 knots for the Rolex Fastnet race. This is going to be a very, very different race, and we're so excited to be watching on. If you want to find more information, you can head to transatjacquesvabre.org. There's an English translation or French if you need it, and then we will do some regular updates as well. So thank you so much, Kass, and I'm so glad you got to be there in person. Thank you for sharing your
pleasure.
passion.
Thanks for making it happen.
Doesn't happen without you, my dear. Go and have a lovely day, and we'll see you very soon. And it's good to be back and live right here.